Hello, my name is Jennifer Bourbonnais, Nutrition and Wellbeing Care Manager with Partners in Care Care Management. Thank you for joining me today as I teach you about the stress management and emotional eating connection. This is an image I found off of the internet, and I thought it was a perfect picture of how stress can wreak havoc on our body, mind, emotions, and behavior. From headaches, fatigue, irritability, depression, maybe drinking more, insomnia, and nightmares. Stress can cause us to be a person that we don't wish to be. I can remember a stressful event that I had in the past, and it caused my eye to twitch. And my eye twitched for a good 2 weeks, even after the stress had passed. You may be able to think of some unhealthy coping mechanisms that individuals may use to handle stress. The first item is candy. Candy is celebratory for many and creates happiness. Candy also has addictive properties. The sugar can increase your serotonin and dopamine levels, which is one of those reasons why we keep going back to the candy bowl, but also it's because of the insulin release that the body is experiencing and driving down sugar levels to the point of being lower than they should be, and then we go back to the sugar bowl to increase the sugar again. So it's an ongoing vicious cycle and can be a very unhealthy coping mechanism. Also, pills. We may know today we have quite an opioid epidemic, and people are using these controlled substances to manage stress. Alcohol. We know people drink their sorrows and their problems away, and then when they sober up, the problems still remain. Smoking. Social media can be entertaining. However, if we're looking at social media so much and if it's causing negative responses, then we know that this would be a very unhealthy thing to be doing long term. Also, gambling. Again, all of these things can be done in moderation, but when we're draining bank accounts or if we're shopping so much that we get home and our credit cards are maxed out and that we can't manage the bills at that point, this would become a very unhealthy coping mechanism, as well as too much maybe TV watching or video game playing, etc. But there's one item that I left out, you might have already guessed it, and it is the unhealthy coping mechanism of using food, the emotional eating perspective. And I left it last, and I thought this is the most important thing to talk about is because food is the one thing we can't live without. We can live without everything else, but it's going to be very important that if you are an emotional eater, that we change that and create a healthier relationship with food. And I'll tell you, I used to be an emotional eater, and I was actually studying to be a dietitian. The irony there is not only do I know exactly what to do, I just wasn't doing it. So that is where most people are in this situation. So let's dive into the cycles that are happening here. So when we're talking about emotional eating, we're experiencing some type of emotion like depression or anger, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, sadness. It could be a whole array of different things. But when that emotion is experienced, we're not handling it healthfully. We're reaching for food. And when we reach for food, it alters our mood because we're no longer thinking about the problem or what was really bothering us. Now we're focused on the fact that we just ate, or we basically have forgotten about what was bothering us because we're thinking about what we're going to be eating or in the preparation of eating. And so we actually shift from that emotion to temporarily feeling better, and depending on how much we ate, we might actually feel uncomfortable. And with that, we may become disappointed in ourselves, have feelings of shame and guilt. But then, once all those feelings go away, that emotion that we were experiencing oftentimes comes back. And so we repeat this cycle because food works as a coping mechanism. Now, there are other cycles that occur, and we just talked about the emotion and the experiencing of some type of stress that may cause us to eat. But the other two cycles that often occur is the dieting pattern. because emotional eaters oftentimes want to lose weight, so they put themselves on a diet. And then because emotional eaters are oftentimes reaching for high carbohydrate, sugary type foods, we also encounter the sugar addiction cycle. So they become overlapping. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to determine what cycle is operating. And sometimes we're just eating because it's become a habit. And so we really do, if we're going to break these cycles, we have to figure out how we can overcome each individual one. So like I was saying, with these cycles overlapping, we eat to mask that feeling and or in response to the deprivation, say that a diet would impose, but we also will choose those high sugar carbohydrate foods because we actually get a dopamine or serotonin release, which is a feel-good hormone, and it has the addictive properties. We temporarily feel better. We satisfy the craving. We get that chemical release. And unfortunately, those emotions get stuffed and buried. We oftentimes feel bad or have less confidence because if we are trying to lose weight, these cycles and patterns are getting in the way, but we actually will sometimes get a real increased appetite as well, because when we eat those high carbohydrate foods, extra insulin is excreted into the body, and that actually causes instant fat storage. And that's where the new hunger, the real hunger, is actually initiated. It's actually kind of more of like a toxic hunger. So we have to be careful of that because, we might think, oh, well, I'm really hungry and I just ate all that food. That's why I think when we look at these different patterns so they can stop repeating themselves over and over again, we have to look at them and say, hey, stop dieting. And I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tools. Limit the amount of sugar. Try to be in touch with the emotions, keep a log, whatever it is you might need to do. All right, so let's go into some more details as to, so some of the things that we can do to help limit these patterns is to reduce stress. And we're going to look at this from two perspectives. Number one is going to be looking at the 4 A's, and these are the cause and effect relationships in our mindset to help decrease stress. But then also there's going to be different stress reducing habits that we can do. Number one, we're going to look at the cause and effect relationship and have a plan to change them. These are the 4 A's. And the first of the A's is to avoid the stressor. This means that we need to take control of our surroundings and stop procrastinating. And there's different types of procrastination. There's the ones that have deadlines, and those are pretty easy. This is a credit card bill that's due, or the project that's due, and you have such and such a date, so it helps you prepare. Saving all of the work till the very last minute, can cause a lot of stress. Either way, procrastinating is always a monkey on your back, right? But the other type of procrastination I want to tell you about is the one that has no deadlines. And that's the one where we say, oh, I need to start logging my physiological hunger, or oh, I need to start the exercise routine. If you never get started, it's just one of those action goals that you wish to achieve, but it just keeps floating out there. Also, avoiding people who bother you. Not always, but sometimes this can be extremely beneficial. That's helpful when there's a caller ID name come up and you might not be ready for that conversation. You can put it off until you're ready. Also, learning how to say no, being honest and upfront with your limitations, super, super important. And it might be that we have to practice this. Paring down the to-do list is important, and starting to prioritize what's really, really important to you as a person. What should you do versus what must you do? So there's a lot of other things we can do in avoiding like stressful conversations and topics. Like, you might have heard you should never discuss religion and politics with, people that have opposing viewpoints because it can cause a lot of stress. But, all of these things are in the avoid category and can be extremely helpful. The second A is to alter the stressor. You're going to want to express your feelings instead of letting them bottle up, using I statements like I feel frustrated by. Being willing to compromise. So if you ask someone to change their behavior, be willing to do the same. Be upfront with your limitations. And I think this is really helpful, especially for those that have a tendency to, want to do it all and do everything perfect. But by saying that you're going to do your best with it, can actually release some of the pressure on yourself. Thinking about the avoiding of the stressor, and we're thinking about maybe a work situation where maybe there's a work bully. This is the opportunity where maybe in the avoiding category, you might choose a different hallway to avoid this person, or avoid them at certain times of the day so that you don't have to deal with a bully. But when it's coming to altering stress, when it comes to a bully, it might mean that you actually have to change locations or floors of where you work. And also it's important to report the behavior, and hopefully that will help alter it. The third A is to adapt to the stressor. You're really going to want to look at the big picture and ask yourself, is this really going to matter in a month, in a year? Is it really worth getting upset over? A lot of stressful situations are really not that important. Shutting down negative thoughts. For instance, if you're in a traffic jam, this is one of those things that you really can't control. We're going to want to adapt to it. Maybe it's time to get some books on audio and start listening to stories or inspirational books. Maybe it's time to call a friend or listen to your favorite music or put your window down, pray, whatever it might be. Think of this as an opportunity. Also, adjusting your standards, knowing that perfectionism is an avoidable stress. Redefining your success and understanding that perfectionism, like perfect, really doesn't exist. So if, let's just say, at one point in your life you did not work and you were raising the kids and you stayed at home, maybe at that time in your life you made all kinds of home-cooked meals. Redefining success means that, hey, maybe once in a while we have to use a jar of spaghetti sauce instead of making it all ourselves. Also, adopting a mantra. Understanding, hey, this too shall pass, or I got this, or the little engine that could, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And when it comes back to the topic of the workplace bully, practicing good coping techniques is going to be important. Change the subject with these people, or kill them with kindness. Doing things that are really going to help take the edge off. The last of the 4 A's is to accept the stressor. Really remember that you're not going to be able to control the uncontrollable. So a mantra of "it is what it is" can be helpful. Also, look at the upside. That which doesn't kill you will make you stronger, and treat your failures like successes. If you can think of any failure in your life that turned into a success, it's very important for you to put that in your back pocket and remember it in times of need. And I'm going to give you an example. I actually, when I finished at Michigan State University, as a dietitian, we needed to get internships, and the market was saturated. I was one of the students that did not get an internship right out of college. Here I'm thinking, I just did 4 years away at school, spent all this money, and I didn't get an internship. So it's very interesting, though. I started working in a nursing home, which was really a great experience because I had never seen that level of care. But it actually inspired me to say, Jennifer, go back to school. Go ahead and get your master's, do a coordinated program for your dietetics, for the internship. And would you know it, my master's project was actually the development of a weight loss program, and that became our St. John Weight Loss Institute large weight loss program that now has billboards for it. And it's all because I didn't get an internship. Because if I got an internship, I probably wouldn't have got my master's. You know what I'm saying? So it's really good to have some of these successes in your back pocket so that you can encourage yourself in the future. Also, it's important to feel like you can share your feelings with a friend or therapist. It can be extremely cathartic. Don't feel like it's a sign of weakness if you need to get help. And also learning to forgive. So it's letting go of anger and resentments, but also learning to forgive ourselves for the accidents that we make in life. So, and then when it comes to the bully, just remember, you're not going to be able to change that person. So, finding good coping and stress management techniques is going to be important. So now we're going to talk about the stress-reducing lifestyle habits that we can incorporate. There are a lot of different things that we can do. This is just a little snapshot that I found on the internet of different things. But I'm going to show you 4 categories, and each category has some different things in them, but they all have things in common, which we're going to talk about. And number 1 is to take a bath or a sauna, get a massage and exercise. Number 2 would be to pray, meditate, practice breathing exercises and mindfulness, experiencing aromatherapy and herbal teas, as well as nutrition cleanup. The first category, bath, sauna, massage, and exercise, all have things in common. They help improve blood circulation, decrease muscle tension, increase perspiration and eliminate toxins from the body, increase endorphins and serotonin, which are shown to calm the mind and improve your mood. Number 2, prayer and meditation helps to refocus the attention to the present. I once heard that it's very important to focus on the present because the past and the future, they don't exist. The only thing that exists is the present. And calming the mind, decreasing heart rate and blood pressure, believe it or not, that certain breathing exercises are actually clinically proven to decrease heart rate and blood pressure. And when practiced regularly, you can get long-term effects. Also, part of the exercise of meditation or mindfulness or prayer can be found on a lot of different apps. So this is SoundCloud, which is a free app. There's also 10% Happier for meditation. There's all kinds of meditation and prayer apps that I encourage you to look into if you need help guiding you. Some of the meditations are only a couple minutes. Some go for 10, 20, 30, whatever because it's going to be a practice. It's going to, it's something that you're going to have to work on. Another form of meditation is like a yoga, which actually incorporates breathing, exercise, and a meditative state. Number 3, there are a few natural remedies that we can use, including herbal tea and aromatherapy. When it comes to herbal teas, now this is not exclusive, but passion flower and chamomile are clinically proven to help decrease stress or create a natural relaxant, decrease anxiety and insomnia. And if it's in the middle of the summertime and you dread the idea of drinking hot tea, I encourage you to make the tea, steep it in the hot water, and then add ice for a nice cool beverage and still get the benefit of the herbs. The other thing is aromatherapy, and it's been around for centuries, and it's really the natural scents, the woody aromas, things like spruce, lavender, frankincense, and cypress, and rosemary that are shown to help improve mood, create calm, focus, and concentration, as well as decrease anxiety. This is probably why when there's a fresh spring rain and you go outside and you take a deep breath and you're like, oh, it smells so good. Or walking through a pine forest and smelling the evergreens, or if you're on the beach, there's these different nature scents that just ground us. Lastly, we're going to think about nutrition cleanup, and that includes limiting the processed and packaged foods, trying to find foods that have ingredients that are actually from nature. Low pesticides and organic is going to be important. Make sure you're always increasing lots and lots of vegetables, especially your green veggies, which are high in antioxidants. Limit your sweets and desserts because they can really wreak havoc on the gut. Sweets and desserts cause our blood sugar to go up and down. They increase cravings. We talked about it a little bit before. So really limiting them, especially the added sugars. Just stay with the natural sugars. Also choosing whole and sprouted grains so that we have less processing of our starches, and eating whole fruits instead of drinking fruit juices. Also, eating organic and avoiding GMOs is a good way to keep a cleaner diet. GMOs are those manufactured ingredients, foods and crops that have been tampered with, and then organic will just help us get, not have the inorganic pesticides that have been linked to some problems. So also stress, B vitamin is our stress management or our happy vitamin. It's a great idea to incorporate that if you are under a lot of stress. B vitamins are actually manufactured in our gut, and so if we have a poor diet or eating a lot of sweets, we might not be manufacturing all the B vitamins that we need or even consuming what it is that we need. So it's a water-soluble vitamin. It's not a bad idea to supplement even a half of one a couple times a day just to keep our B's up, and or getting your multivitamin, which in my opinion is kind of like insurance, because we're not going to be perfect at our diet. So taking a multivitamin daily is a good way to just kind of have insurance that we're getting all the micronutrients that our body may need. So now I want to give you some tips to help you overcome emotional eating. And the first tip is to help you understand your emotional eating trigger. And you're going to want to ask yourself before you eat a few questions. What time is it? Where are you? Who else is around? What did you just do? And what emotion are you feeling? So for example, if you are an emotional eater, you might ask yourself, what time is it? Oh, it's 7 o'clock at night. Where are you? In the kitchen. Who else is around? No one. What did you just do? Start thinking about the day for tomorrow, all the things that you have to do. Created anxiety was the feeling that your emotion, a feeling. So thinking about that, it could be different for everybody, and just asking your questions is very helpful for you to stop the cycle, because you'll stop it when you identify the trigger. The second tip to help you stop emotional eating is to try to eat only when you are physiologically hungry. You're going to want to tune into your hunger before you reach for food. Is it just a habit? Is that why you're eating? Is there a physical versus a psychological reason for you wanting to eat, kind of like, that mouth hunger? Or is it physiological hunger? And you can kind of tell just by the way your stomach feels, if you're physiologically hungry or if it's mouth hunger. You can always do what I call the broccoli test and ask yourself, okay, would I eat broccoli right now? And if the answer is yes, most likely you want to eat for fuel instead of comfort. I suppose if you were to put melted cheese all over the broccoli, it might be for comfort, but you get the idea. The third tip that I want to share with you is to practice mindful eating. And this is where it's very important for you to put away any distractions like the radio, TV, newspapers, books, anxiety-producing conversations, and try to really be focused on what you're eating. Avoid the trance of being focused on something else. Start with words of gratitude out louder in your head. And also try to savor each bite for the texture and the flavor and how it makes you feel. I'll share with you an example. My daughter had a birthday and we got her an ice cream cake. Well, as the hostess, I didn't eat any cake. And the next day I was thinking, because everybody raved about this cake, I said, I really want to try some. So I come in from work and I've got my bags, my lunch bag, the mail, my purse. I just plop it all down on the counter. And I get the bowl, I get the ice cream, I put some in the bowl. I took a bite and I said, oh, this is so good. But I proceeded to look through all my mail and just escape into other things. I did not remember any other bite that I took of that ice cream. I just remember the first bite, which was the best bite, but I was distracted the rest of the time eating it. And when the bowl was empty, I'm like, oh, shoot, So it's just a really good example as to why, especially when we're eating things that we don't normally eat, want to really truly enjoy to eliminate distractions. The fourth tip, and we have one more after this one, is to not restrict yourself from specific foods. Forbidden foods are usually the ones that we want during an emotional eating crisis. If you say you can't have something on an emotional level, you want it even more. So remove that fantasy that you put around the food, because that pleasure that you seek always goes away. And remember, science does not lie in this area. If you are truly craving chocolate, you cannot substitute it for kale. Even though they're both high in antioxidants, your body and your mind and your emotion wants the chocolate. And I don't have a problem with people enjoying their cravings. Now, if we're doing it every day and having portion sizes that are hurting us, then definitely we have to take a second look. The fifth and the last tip I wanted to provide to you to help you overcome emotional eating is respecting your body. And you're going to want to really focus on what it is that your body wants and try to eat from a cellular level, not from a mouth hunger standpoint. So you really want to think about what is it that your body wants, what is it that your body needs. Next, put forth positive steps. Always move forward. The goal is really for us to be better today than we were yesterday. Always do something better to better yourself daily. And you're also going to visualize that you're already there and avoid criticizing and scrutinizing yourself. Be aware that your thoughts will reflect into your actions, which will actually affect your overall self-esteem. So really be in tune with your thoughts. You might have heard the term, you got to fake it to make it. if you can tell yourself that you are a fit person instead of saying, I wish I was fit, you will start acting like a more of a fit person by exercising or eating healthier because you believe and you visualize the fact that you're a fit person. And then also, I encourage you to work out your body. Appreciate what your body can do and become. For example, if you were to start into a yoga class, let's just say you never did yoga before, it would be very new to you. You might actually be asked to do a tree pose. And if it's your first time, I would guess that you're going to tumble or trip or sway and kind of like come out of the pose quite easily because you're not used to it. But with practice and time, it will be amazing for you to see how well you're going to be able to balance. And the same goes for everything. Like if you want to improve your strengthening, you have a starting point, and with practice and diligence, you'll become stronger or more cardiovascular fit, etc. So really appreciate that because we're not just like, still beings, okay? We're always moving and hopefully into the right direction. So on the last little caption and picture I found off the internet, basically says, respect yourself enough to walk away from anything that no longer serves you, grows you, or makes you happy. So and that really does require a lot of courage, but I encourage you to keep that at the forefront of your mind. So thank you very much for joining me today. I truly appreciate your time, and I really hope that I was able to give you some valuable tips to help you manage stress and stop emotional eating.